Alex Jones owes $50 million, all for his lies about Sandy Hook. And while we've been reporting that story from its inception, tonight we dig into how this is actually a larger warning for other liars and conspiracy theorists in our society and our politics. It's a rebuke and a punishment that we believe, according to a lot of legal experts, will set this new precedent. Jones is basically paying the penalty, being held financially liable for the lies about that massacre, which go along with a whole wider profit approach to lies, as he put grieving parents through a type of hell.
I can't even describe the last 9.5 years of the living hell that I and others have had to endure because of the negligence and the recklessness of Alex Jones.
That's just a small quote from some of the real people affected, which clearly moved the jury. Jones facing this punishment, but it's not over. There's a whole separate defamation trial in the same Texas court for another victim's family, because these lies, of course, have defamed many different people. And there's a case in Connecticut as well. Now, what does this mean for the legal limits and punishments for other individuals who make lying and conspiracy theories part of their business model or politics? We've seen this all the way up through the insurrection as a huge part of American life. Well, Fox News is clearly watching this closely. They are facing this suit by Dominion Voting Systems for over $1 billion about false perceptions and what they say is deliberate lying that could basically bankrupt that whole company, given Fox's huge megaphone. Trump AG Barr was actually subpoenaed in that case last month. The suit is moving ahead. And there's the larger warning that just repeating things that you know to be false cannot be protected speech if you are doing it and trying to disguise what is the circulation of lies in the media and the liars who push those lies. We wanted to turn to someone with a lot of experience about this over time. That's Mother Jones Washington Bureau Chief David Corn. Welcome back, sir.
Good to be with you, Ari.
I will do the semi-annoying thing for regular viewers, which is mention that this program has a big commitment to the First Amendment and free speech. I actually literally used to practice First Amendment law. And so when it comes to objectionable, even hateful words that are a part of debate in American life, I'll defend them. I've actually literally done that in court. What is not defensible and what, as you know, is not First Amendment protected speech is defamation, the willful and repeated malicious lying about people and designed only to hurt them when you know it to be false. Jones already is convicted of that, so we're past that phase. I'm curious what you see here as a wider precedent, given that other people use a similar or slightly diluted version of this playbook.
Well, I think you're right. As journalists and as citizens, we have to be concerned that people don't misuse defamation laws and libel laws to silence free speech, and reporting sometimes can make mistakes and be held accountable for it. We're talking about the reckless promotion of lies with malice. And that's what Jones does. The cases prove this. It's been proven over and over again, not just from Sandy Hook, but with 9/11, trutherism, and everything else. And so I think if you're in that line of work, and he's made apparently over $300 million a year doing this, you have to watch your back now, because this jury has sent a signal that we're not going to allow First Amendment rights to protect the promotion of reckless disinformation and propaganda that is just so beyond the pale. And right now we see Dominion not just suing Fox. Dominion Voting is suing OAN. It's suing Newsmax. It's suing Rudy Giuliani. It's suing the Pillow Guy. It's suing Sidney Powell. And, you know, there are this happening in different states and different courtrooms, but you'd have to be really worried because they were, in essence, doing the same thing. And I think there's even a bigger issue here than you raised in the introduction, and that is we've seen conspiracism take deep root within the Republican Party and the conservative movement over the last 5, 10, 15 years. Alex Jones helped put it there. He wasn't the only one who did this. Trump did it with birtherism. We have an Arizona Secretary of State who was just elected by Republicans, a nominee, he hasn't won yet, but he is a QAnon supporter. We have Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania running for governor there, Republican. He has been friendly to QAnon. So the whole conspiracy theory industry has sort of subsumed the Republican Party and the conservative movement. And now we're seeing out of this one jury in Austin, Texas, that they're saying, hey, we're going to try to put some guardrails up and put some brakes on this. And I think that has ramifications for a lot of people other than Alex Jones.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the other cases. We mentioned Fox. Take a look at the Fox News situation.
Dominion came under heavy fire after allegations that their machines caused thousands of votes in one Michigan county to be switched from Donald Trump to Joe Biden.
The machines can be hacked. There's no question about that. Their machines can be hacked.
You know, the votes in Dominion, they say, are counted in foreign countries.
We reached out to one of the leading authorities on open source software for elections, Eddie Perez, for his insight and views.
Have you seen any evidence that Smartmatic software was used to flip votes anywhere in the U.S. in this election?
I have not seen any evidence that Smartmatic software was used to delete, change, alter anything related to vote tabulation.
David, the final segment there is one where they did something apparently that never occurred to them or they didn't want to do in the middle or the beginning, which was fact check the actual claims. But in a democracy, whether people understand factually what the results are or not can make all the difference between a peaceful transfer of power or what we lived through.
And you saw in the January 6th hearing when Rusty Bowers, who is the Speaker of the Arizona State House, said that Giuliani told him, we have theories, but we have no evidence. Donald Trump went out on election night and claimed there was fraud, claimed, there were the big lie. He started immediately without having any evidence, any facts. And of course, as you noted, Bill Barr has been deposed in the Dominion case because he told Trump that this whole conspiracy theory about Dominion voting machines was a bunch of crap. Right. So, again, I think this is a great pushback here to the role of conspiracy theory in American politics.
Yeah, really excellent. Appreciate your view on it. It's a big, big precedent that's clearly getting noticed. David Corn, thank you.